Hello, welcome to Movie Stories. Today we're going to be talking about Parasite. Careful for spoilers ahead. Now let's begin. Gyu Kim is a young man living in poverty in the slums of a South Korean city with his family, father Ki-taek Kim, mother Jung-soo, and sister Ki-jung. The family lives in a garden unit where they struggle finding a Wi-Fi signal to sneak into in order to get access to the internet to watch TV, get fumigated on, and have to watch men urinating in the alley outside their home. They make ends meet by doing menial tasks such as folding pizza boxes, and even then get criticized by the pizza employees for messing up the boxes. Gyu's wealthy friend Min-hyuk pays the family a visit, giving them a gift of a rock that is supposed to bring those who have it wealth and prosperity. He then tells Gyu that he's been tutoring the teenage daughter of a very wealthy family. He's leaving to study abroad, but is in love with the daughter and knows that any of the other university boys would steal her away. He wants Gyu to be her tutor, knowing he will watch over her so that Min-hyuk can propose to her once she graduates high school. Gyu knows he isn't qualified since he isn't in college, but Min-hyuk promises to vouch for him, and so he agrees and has Ki-jung forge credentials for him to take to his interview. Gyu interviews at the very wealthy Park family, where he meets Mr. Park and his wife Mrs. Park and their children, teenage daughter Dae and young son Da-sung. Gyu realizes he will need to flirt with Dae to get the job, and he does. Mrs. Park pays him an exorbitant amount of money and mentions they need an art tutor for Da-sung. Da-sung had a traumatic incident where he saw a ghost in the house and had a seizure and has been needing help with his art. Gyu introduces them to Ki-jung, who forges documents for herself and goes by Jessica, and she too begins making money hand over fist. When the Park's limo driver takes her home, Ki-jung leaves her underwear in the car in order to get him fired. She then suggests her uncle as a new driver, who is really her father. The last position is that of the housekeeper Moon-gwang. She has worked at the home since before the Park family lived there. She worked for the previous owner, an eccentric architect. In order to get her fired, the Kims exploit her allergy to peaches, causing her to have allergic reactions. They then convince Mrs. Park that she is seriously contagiously ill and cannot be around their son. She leaves devastated, and Mrs. Kim is given the job, fooling the Park family into hiring the entire Kim family. The Kim family enjoys their massive increase of income, and when the Park family decides to leave to go camping for Da-sung's birthday weekend, they take the opportunity to stay in the huge Park house for the weekend. They spend the evening drinking and eating and making a mess of the place when the doorbell rings. It's Moon-gwang. She claims she was fired so quickly she left without being able to get something and just wants it back. Mrs. Kim reluctantly lets her in, and Moon-gwang runs into the basement and begins screaming, opening a secret passage behind some shelves. She goes to her husband, Kun-se. Secretly, he's been living in the bunker ever since the previous owner moved out in order to hide from loan sharks. She gives him food while Mrs. Kim looks on in horror. She tells Moon-gwang that she needs to leave, and as Moon-gwang begs her to let them stay, the rest of the Kim family who had been eavesdropping falls off the stairs and into view, and they call each other dad, son, daughter, mom, etc., which Moon-gwang films on her phone, realizing the con the family has pooled. She threatens to send it to the Park family and uses that so she and her husband can force the Kim family to do their bidding. The Kim family manages to get the upper hand on them, getting them into the secret bunker, but the Park family calls. They've canceled their camping trip due to rain and will be home in 8 minutes. The Kims scramble, trying to clean up as much mess as they can, keeping the other two in the basement. They manage to do a good enough job that the rest of the family is able to hide, while Mrs. Kim gives the Parks their dinner. When Moon-gwang breaks out and runs upstairs, Mrs. Kim shoves her back down the stairs, where she hits her head and is severely wounded. Moon-gwang and Kun-se are locked in the bunker. Mr. and Mrs. Park end up sleeping in the living room in order to keep an eye on Da-sung, who is camping out in the backyard, forcing the Kims to stay under the table, frozen all night, even as the Parks complain about Mr. Kim's smell. And then later, they make love. Eventually, in the dead of night, they're able to sneak out. They return home to find their apartment completely flooded with rain and sewage. Gyu takes the rock, and the family sleeps in a shelter for the night. The next day, Mrs. Park decides to throw an impromptu party for Da-sung. The Kim family, in their roles as help, are invited and have to pretend that they don't know that there are two people locked in a bunker under the house. Gyu takes the rock down into the bunker, where Moon-gwang has died and is ambushed by Kun-se, who bludgeons him in the head with a rock. He then enters the party, where he stabs Ki-jung in the chest. The party explodes into horror, and Da-song has a seizure. Gunse was the ghost he had seen in the house prior. Mr. Park screams at his driver for the car keys to take his son to the hospital, and he throws them to him. Mr. Kim, who is trying to stop Ki-jung's bleeding. They land under Gunse, who is fighting with Mrs. Kim. She manages to kill him by stabbing him with a meat skewer. Mr. Park gets the keys, but expresses disgust at Gunse's smell, and this triggers Mr. Kim, who snaps and stabs Mr. Park, killing him. Mrs. Park faints as Mr. Kim flees. Gyu wakes up in the hospital, where he's been in the coma for weeks. He finds out that Ki-jung has died, and he and Mrs. Kim are sentenced to probation. There has been no sign of Mr. Kim, even though the police have been searching for him for Mr. Park's murder far and wide. Gyu leaves the rock in a river and observes the former Park house, where he sees the lights flickering. Gyu translates the flickering from Morse code and learns that Mr. Kim is controlling them from inside the bunker, where he is now living, sneaking upstairs for food from the new owners. Gyu writes his father a letter back, resolving that someday he will become wealthy enough that he can buy the house and their family can be reunited. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, as it really does help out the channel a lot. Be safe and have a great day.